Well, good afternoon, everybody. Well, it may not be an afternoon by the time you're watching this. My name is James Ratu. I'm the rector of St John's Church here in Farncombe. And over the last couple of months, I've been having several conversations with people around the community here in Farncombe and in the local area who have particular expertise and particular perspectives to bring to our experiences of the pandemic and the situation that we've been in over the course of the last year now. So this is the third of these conversations, and today I'm going to be talking to Debra and to Charlotte from NovusCare, which is based over in Loseley Park, I believe. I think when I first got in touch with you, you were next to the railway line in Farncombe. But
yeah.
And I thought it would be good to have the perspective of somebody working in the care sector on what's been going on over the last year, because it was a big theme, and well, still is to a certain extent, about the impact that the pandemic had on the work that the care sector does. So that's the basis of our conversation. So I thought perhaps if you could start by just explaining a bit about NovusCare and about what you do and how the setup works.
Okay, so NovusCare is a care agency. It's the MDs, the directors have set this up, so it's a private agency. Basically what we do is we support the vulnerable adults of the community, so we go to their houses. We've got our care staff that help us, so we do things from personal care to medication to shopping, housework, cooking, companionship, take people out if they need to go out, take them to appointments, help them with their day-to-day lives. We've got quite a range of vulnerable people. We've got elderly with dementia, we have people with learning difficulties, we have some people that have got autistic things going on, and a real range of people in the community. The girls and boys go to the houses and help them live as independently as they can, which is massive for everybody's self-esteem. And if people don't have to go to the hospital and can stay in their own homes with their own routines and their own family popping in and out, it's an ideal situation. So yeah, that's basically what we do.
Great, okay. How long has the company been going?
The company's actually been going for about 7 or 8 years now. We have a few branches. We've got one in Wickford, well, not Wickford, actually, one in Wickford, one in Canvey Island, one in Watford. We've got Cranley, and we've got ourselves in Godalming. So there's 5 branches. We all work under the umbrella, and we all do the same thing. We also do living as well, so living people go and stay and live with the vulnerable adults that need that help for 2-3 weeks at a time. And yeah, it's been really successful. It is a good company. I've been here myself for 3 years, and I like the community. I love the community as opposed to the residential. For me, the community is very challenging in different ways. There's different things that happen on every day. No, I was just saying that it's been going for 7 or 8 years, and we've it's a good company.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of my team here. I've been here for 3 years. Built it
and
up.
You're the branch manager.
I'm the branch manager, yeah. So when I came to Farncombe, we were a little satellite office off of Cranley, and we only had about 100 hours and 8 staff, so we were really small. But now we've got 800 hours, 30 staff, and we sort of widened our areas a little bit now. So we've spread our wings a bit. So it's going really well.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm now going to ask the same question that I've asked the other people I've spoken to, which is, how's it been for you individually? I mean, how has the pandemic impacted on you, your family, the way things work, that kind of thing? Have you been okay all the way through?
No, I actually got COVID, and I had thankfully it was nothing terrible. I had a couple of weeks off where I wasn't well, Still managed to work from home. But it's been frightening, really frightening. It's been mentally challenging. I think the second lockdown was the hardest because in the first one, no one really knew what was going to happen or how serious it was going to be. We were all just kind of, everybody was going through it quite blindly. So I think by the time it got to the second lockdown, everyone was scared. You know, everyone was scared. And you could see from the media, and, you know, we could all see, you know, with some of our clients passing away, how effective it was and how, you know, how mentally challenging it was for everybody, I feel.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. I think we all struggled much more with the second lockdown than the first one. And I think it just made it really real for people. And, you know, we're out there facing it, you know, like a lot of other healthcare workers and other professions as well. So, you know, it has been tough.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that. I appreciate that very much. Now, when I was trying to work out what to talk about and what to ask you about, obviously I went looking online to see what information I could get, not having a great deal of interaction with the care sector myself, apart from some people that I know in the community, obviously, who have sometimes visiting and sometimes live in care too. But I came across the report that the Social Care Institute for Excellence put together in September, which was about the impact of the epidemic on the care sector at that time. Now, things might have changed a bit since then, but I found it quite an eye-opener, really, because it provided me with all sorts of data and information that I wouldn't necessarily have known about. So it talked about the challenges of a sector which has 18,500 separate providers working in it, and how difficult it is to coordinate things and respond across all those different providers. And also, of course, the fact that you've got quite a high turnover of staff each year. Yeah. It doesn't tend to be a sector in which people spend a long time. They tend to work in the sector for a little while and often move on. The statistics they also mentioned was that by June, and I know you deal with care for people in their own homes, and it was talking also partly about the residential care too, but it said that by June there had been 30,500 excess deaths of people in care homes. Yeah. So that provides a certain degree of perspective on what was happening, and also that care staff, and I imagine that does include you as well as residential care staff as well, were twice as likely to die themselves as the general population was, because your staff are exposing themselves to a higher degree of risk than the majority of the population. So I'd like to have some kind of perspective from you on how that affected Novus as a company and what you might have seen in other care providers as well. Things like how you manage things like supplies and priorities and keeping people safe, and that kind of thing. How did it feel for you when things started last year?
It was really challenging, and I think that as the whole nation wasn't sure of what was going to happen, personally myself, I think there wasn't a quickness to the stuff that we needed, or the urgency at the beginning of the stuff that we needed. So we relied quite a lot on schools and churches that were actually had people actually making us masks and you know, things like that, which we couldn't get hold of. And some of the masks that we got that they made us, we were really grateful for, because you could wash them. They weren't the throwaway ones, you could wash them. So for me, you know, I was over the moon, because it meant my staff were protected. And without the people in the community, the schools and the churches doing that, we would not have had enough. We would not have had enough. It did become apparent to a lot of care companies and agencies that was the same case. So I think that's when the government sort of stepped up a little bit, and more people really started sort of, you know, donating stuff. Even the sanitizers, the hand sanitizers and the aprons were really hard to get hold of. So we were, going into as many shops as we could and just buying bottles of hand sanitizer and trying to fill up. We didn't have to do this. Luckily, we had enough aprons, but I do know that some of the agencies were using bin bag covers because we just didn't have enough.
Okay.
And obviously, you know, as a registered manager, my main concern are to my service users, but also I've got a duty of care to my staff.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, so it was. I've got to say, you know, the community really did come through for us. For me personally, in this branch, and I was absolutely over the moon. I couldn't thank them enough. I was over the moon. With the testing kits that came out later, so people were trying to search, like everybody, I think, on where you could get a test and how you went about that. It wasn't ready available. By the time we came to the second lockdown, they were more on it, so it was a lot better that way. What do you feel, Charlotte?
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think that we all had a lot more information by the second lockdown, and I think that, you know, we haven't had issues this time round getting all the PPE equipment that we need, and we kind of, you know, we do plan for it quite far ahead, so we make sure that we, you know, we never run out. But, you know, we did have to limit how much we were giving out individually to carers to make sure there was enough to go around. So at least we had enough for a couple of weeks, you know,
or a
couple of days. So, you know, it was doing those kind of things. But again, it was, you know, as Debbie said, we have to make sure our service users remain safe and the carers, because we were taking on board discharges from hospital as well. So they were calling a lot. Can you do this and can you do that? And you know, again, it's for carers, it was high risk at that point, even more so because they're coming out of hospital, and there was a time when you didn't necessarily get the negative COVID test for them coming out of discharge, which they do now. It's something that is kind of like more of a standard practice. So I think that that's supported our peace of mind a little bit more this time round.
Brilliant, thank you. And what have you seen among your staff? I mean, have you seen people contracting COVID and having to be off sick, and has that meant that you've had to juggle things around? It's been harder than it would normally be.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the turnover in care is quite high anyway, in a normal situation. But in this one, everybody was beginning to self-isolate for 10 days, and it was a government rule that you had to. So what we did is we went into, we've got a contingency plan. So we looked through, well, Charlotte and I looked through, and, you know, people that were living on their own, that had no family, you know, couldn't see their family, you know, were bedbound or anything like that. Obviously, they were high priority. So the calls were, some were reduced, not for the whole length, but for the main bits that they needed. And some of them were moved about, and some of the service users had their families with them, so they were doing a lot of it. So we kind of juggled it all round like that. So everybody that really needed it, that was high risk, did get seen.
Okay. So it sounds as though things have improved a bit over time as you've gone on, and it's a bit better than it was when things started. Is that fair enough?
No, well, not really, I'd say. I mean, yes, in the terms of the PPE and the testing, and yes, absolutely, in the hospitals now doing the testing and people getting their first jabs, absolutely wonderful. However, the recruitment for this second lockdown since before Christmas has been absolutely rubbish, to be honest. No one is coming through at all. Everybody's scared, and I think now with the lockdown hopefully easing, which I hope it does, they don't seem to, they don't want to do this job. They don't, you know, I don't know if they've seen that we've been out and they don't want to do that. I don't know if they don't want to put themselves in that position, but the recruitment is high anyway, the turnover is high anyway. So we've had quite a lot of staff leaving because they've had to homeschool their children, or they've had relatives that they've wanted to look after, you know, for various reasons, and we haven't been able to recoup people back to replace them and build us up. So I would say the most negative thing has been from this is the recruitment and what effect it's had on us.
Right. Okay. No, that's interesting. You mentioned earlier on about support from the community and how you appreciated that, certainly in the early stages, and that was something that the SCIE report also referred to, about perhaps a greater awareness within local communities of the role that care agencies play in looking after people, because a lot of times it just sort of it happens unseen, doesn't it? You go into people's houses, people don't necessarily know you're there, and it just happens. Whereas now everybody's much more aware of the role that you and other companies play in the life of a community, really, even though you're interacting just with one individual at a time. One of the, or among the other things that that the report referred to as things that had developed and moved on during the course of the pandemic were things like better digital information recording, cooperation between bodies in the sector, and that kind of thing. Have you seen anything along those lines?
I mean, we had a lot of contact and support, maybe from some of the care teams that we work with, and some of them were kind of like more of like a welfare call to us as to, is there anything that we can do? Is there anything that we can help with? They kind of wanted to know what we were doing as to how do we keeping everybody safe, and those kind of things, it was good because it was really coming at that, everybody was supporting each other.
It was a massive team effort.
And I think that was nice because we have a lot of contacts with, different councils of, all the referrals that we get. And I think that, just going back to talking about the staffing of, they did an amazing job and they continue to do, I get a bit emotional. They continue to do an amazing job because we couldn't do it unless they weren't out supporting. And me and Debbie go out as well. We're not just in the office. And, they put themselves at risk on a daily basis for over nearly a year now. And they do it day in, day out. And, you can't, all we can do is commend them on the great work that they do. And as you said, it's brought it to the forefront so much more now. When people are under the impression that care's an easy job, and it's not an easy job, it's very complex and you have to know a lot. So,
But I do agree. I think through the pandemic, it has actually opened eyes to everybody, to the community, the shop workers that turn up every day and serve you the shopping, the delivery drivers that deliver the shopping to people that can't get to the shops, the care workers. So I think the positive thing out of it, because there's been so many hardships and heartaches, and negative things. The positive thing is that it's just nice that, you have got everybody singing from the same, hymn sheet, and everybody is supporting everybody, because I wasn't in the war, but I can only remember of what my grandparents said, and it's that community feel.
And camaraderie.
It's lovely. It's just a shame that it's taken this for people to get there.
Quite, yes. And looking forward to the future, I mean, again, going back to that report which I read, it made a number of recommendations, hopes for what might happen subsequently to positive changes and consequences that might come out of this dreadful situation that we've all been in. And we've been talking about reforming social care for so long, and governments have thrown it backwards and forwards, and because it's so difficult and because it's so complex, it just gets sort of pushed to one side and forgotten about. But the report made sort of 3 recommendations. They talked about better long-term funding, rather than just sort of managing from one episode to the next, but actually thinking about it in a more coherent way. Promoting preventative rather than acute care, and better conditions and pay for the people who work in the sector. Which all sort of makes sense. But can you say anything about that? As in terms of what might happen positively in the future, what we might want to emerge from this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that now this has come to light, and you can hear Boris Johnson and everyone, saying that for the care, the carers, because initially it was the hospitals and the nurses and the doctors and the GPs, which all do an amazing job. It's now sort of like gone to the community, which I think, because the hospitals are so overrun and the staff are so overworked, you do need more people in the community to help support people that want to go home, that don't want to go to a residential home, want to, you know, pass away in their own homes. So I think, yeah, there should be some sort of better process to follow, or qualifications, or, you know, for the pay and the hours, because we are supporting the hospitals, we're supporting the GPs and the nurses and the doctors and the ambulance crew, you know, so anything that they could offer to support us, I think would be a welcome thing.
No, I agree, and I think it's about sharing that information with people who aren't in the care sector. I think that a lot of families aren't aware of, there are private agencies that they can go to that will offer specialised care or tailor-made care, person-centred care for their loved one. And I think that it's opened up a lot of that information for people that wouldn't know otherwise. I know about care because I've worked in it for 20 years. I know the right people to call. I know if I've got a problem, who I need to call. People who aren't involved in that way don't know. They don't know who to call. So I think that it's kind of opened those doors up a lot for people. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that's more or less everything I wanted to ask about. Is there anything else that you might want to say that we haven't covered, that occurs to you as we've been talking?
No, I think
the service, I mean, we're really lucky. The service users that we go and see are lovely. I mean, they're just the nicest of people, and they're so grateful for all the help they receive. We've been really lucky. We have been really lucky. And we've had a couple of people that have had COVID, but, you know, thankfully haven't passed away. So we're really lucky, and I know some agencies, and I know some of the branches that even with Novus, they haven't been as lucky. So us at Farncombe, we have been incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
Great. Debra, Charlotte, thank you ever so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the chance to talk to you. And thank you very much. Thank you for the work that you and the rest of your staff are doing. God bless you, and keep it up.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.